If You Sailed on the Mayflower in 1620 by Anne McGovern, illustrated by Anna DeVitio. Let's finish reading our story and see what happened during the first Thanksgiving. Were there special days for fun? Weddings were for fun for the whole town. The first wedding in Plymouth took place in May, 5 months after the Pilgrims landed. The Pilgrims' first Thanksgiving in the New World was a special time for joy. Who took part in the holidays? Everyone in Plymouth, about 50 Pilgrims and their Native American friends. The Pilgrims were thankful for their friends. Without them and their corn, the Pilgrims would have starved. Without Squanto to teach them the ways, the Pilgrims would not have lasted the year. The governor of Plymouth asked Chief Massasoit to come. The governor told him to bring along a few friends, and Chief Massasoit brought more than a few friends. He showed up with 90 Native American braves. What did they eat for Thanksgiving? When you think of Thanksgiving, do you think of turkey and cranberry sauce and pumpkin pie? Sounds good. The Pilgrims had turkey too, but their turkeys were not like the ones we eat today. Their turkeys were wild and much bigger. There was plenty of cranberries that grew around Plymouth, but the Pilgrims did not make cranberry sauce. They had plenty of pumpkins, but no pumpkin pie. They did have meat pies, though. There were wild geese, wild duck, lobsters, eels, clams, oysters, and many other kinds of fresh fish, and the Indians had 5 deer for the feast. There were corn cooked in many different ways, and there was popcorn, too. The Pilgrims had no sugar. Perhaps they used wild honey to sweeten their food. There were vegetables from the Pilgrims' gardens. Some of those vegetables that came from the garden were carrots and cucumbers and turnips and onions, radishes, beets, and cabbages. Most of the cooking and all of the feasting was done outside. Deer, turkey, geese, and ducks were roasted on the outdoor spits. Lobsters and oysters were roasted over hot coals. For dessert, there were wild berries and fruits, like strawberries and gooseberries and plums and cherries and other fruits that had been picked in the spring and dried to eat for later. No one went hungry that first Thanksgiving. There was so much food that it took 3 whole days to eat it all. How did the Pilgrims spend Thanksgiving? The Pilgrim women and girls spent most of their time cooking. The men and the boys played games. The Native Americans and the Pilgrims shot bows and arrows. They played throwing the bar and hand wrestling. They had contests that included jumping and running and racing. They played games of stool ball with a leather ball filled with feathers. Miles Standish held a parade. One man blew the trumpet. One man beat on the drum. The little group of soldiers marched and fired their guns. Thanksgiving was a time for eating and drinking and a time for playing and for having fun. And for the Pilgrims, it was a good time for sharing and giving thanks. The end. I hope you enjoyed reading about the Mayflower and the New World and how the Pilgrims and the Native Americans all worked together to make a better life for each other. I hope that you get to spend Thanksgiving with your friends and family. And while you're at it, remember, Thanksgiving is all about being together and sharing and taking care of each other.